Welcome to the Prophecy Club. We're going to be talking about your money, specifically your life savings, because we do not want you to lose it. And of course, you don't want to lose it. And I've got Brad Garrett on with me today with Genesis Gold. He's the 800-200 gold guy, and he reports Jonathan Rose. And there's about 25, 30 people there that work in this very successful and very God-based company. Okay, so Brad, welcome to the Prophecy Club.
Thanks for having me, Stan. Happy to be here.
Okay, so you just said something, and I just said, hold it. Tell them. So tell them what is going on in the world of financially and precious metals and all that. Tell them what you're about to tell me.
Yeah, so there was an article that recently came out from Bloomberg discussing our current U.S. treasuries. And there's a few issues right now because of how much we're spending, borrowing, et cetera, our current debt at $34 trillion. We're accumulating so much that with how, the debt we currently have, our interest on that debt accumulating, nearly $1 trillion every 100 days, we need a entity of some kind. More than likely it's a government, it's a foreign government that needs to purchase $10 trillion of US treasuries, or we're knocking on the door of the point of no return economically. So when we're seeing,
By when?
Oh, yes, sir.
By when? When do they need to buy these treasuries?
That's by the end of 2024. So that's based off of our current budget and the deficit we have.
Okay, I just read an article, I think I put it in either yesterday's or today's program, that said that China, since the first of the year, has been dumping massive amounts, mega amounts of U.S. treasuries. In other words, instead of buying them, they're dumping them, correct?
Correct. So since the beginning of the year, the first quarter, China sold off, and just China alone sold off $53 billion worth of U.S. treasuries. Interestingly enough, 20 billion of that came in the month of April, where they sold $20 billion of U.S. treasuries and exchanged that for physical gold. That comes right off of the back of them bolstering their gold holdings more than 80% in the last 9 months from their previous holdings. So,
okay, hold it. So you're saying China, probably the second or third largest economy in the world, is dumping U.S. treasuries. In other words, they're getting out of paper and
Yep.
they're getting into gold.
Correct.
Maybe that's some good advice for us too.
I always think they know something more than we do, or a step ahead. So I watch the big banks, I watch the countries. And when you start seeing the big banks and the largest economies in the world rotate away from U.S. treasuries and start to purchase physical gold and silver, that's a red flag to me. Even if I don't know why yet, I'm sure we all will soon.
I watched a filthy mouth movie, just part of it the other night, just to hear this guy say this. He said, there's 3 ways to be successful: be first, be best, or cheat. He said, I don't want to cheat, so you got to be first.
Yep.
And there's a lot of truth there. You got to be first. So China, and they're not the only one, also Japan, there's actually many countries right now that are getting out of paper. When they say I'm selling bonds, that's what they're doing. They're getting out of specifically out of U.S. paper. Now, what's the ramifications of that? What does that mean for our dollar?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I wish I knew that answer. What I try to do is correlate everything to data. Right now, our National Bureau of Economic Research states that our dollar's purchasing power is declining at about 2.2 pennies per year since the year 2000. So that's our ability to go to the store, purchase goods and services, and the power that $1 has, right? They're labeling it at 2.7 pennies as of today. So mathematically, right, that puts a shelf life of maybe a year and a half, 2 years before our National Bureau of Economic Research is saying that our dollar will be valued at 0 for purchasing power. Now, I was discussing this with a couple of gentlemen yesterday in terms of what that means for us. Well, it's eerily similar to the conversation of why we would switch to a digital currency, right? We're starting to see this conversation come up in the financial world, in the global economy. Everybody is starting to talk about digital currencies, right? It's been on the cusp for about 2 years, but we're now starting to say we have the system set up. We're
Right.
ready to implement it at
Right.
any point in time. Why are they not? Well, most Americans don't want it. We don't want a digital currency that can trace and track everything we do.
Most people on the planet don't want it.
Exactly.
It's the
But
global elite that want it.
exactly. So an easy way of getting folks to say, oh, we're okay with a digital currency is to come right off of the back of saying we don't have another choice. Our US dollar is worth nothing. What direction can we go other than what, I try to relate it to history. In Greece in 2003, when the Troika was failing, they had to go onto the Euro standard, right? So they bankrupted the Troika and went to the Euro standard. Well, how are we going to switch our currency with $34 trillion in debt? Other than maybe bankrupt our current dollar and rotate to a new currency. Because the one thing we have learned from history is we can't bring our debt with us when we launch a new currency. Other than digital, it gives us a way out as far as our current debt as well. We can't just keep making new US bonds to cover the last bond's interest
Right.
rates. That's not going to keep, the lights on, if you will.
It's like the old saying, if it's not broken, don't fix it. Okay. So they have to break it in order to fix it. And what we're seeing is in the process of breaking it. Now, Shane Warren was told that silver is going to skyrocket far more than gold. And at the same time, the same visitation, he was also shown that that the dollar is going to fall down to where it's worthless as leaves blowing in the wind. Two questions: what would cause silver to skyrocket and the dollar to fall to zero?
Well, the dollar's already been declining. There's several factors that play a part in that. Inflation happens to be one of them, and printing money happens to be another. So those two, also go hand in hand. If we have more money being printed that's purchasing the same amount of goods and services, it means the money in circulation is worth less as far as that individual dollar, right? So the more we print, the more we're devaluing our dollar, and we're printing more money than we ever have in history. So we haven't found more money to go into the stock markets. We've created digital positions through quantitative easing and other ways of, checks that go to the American people in support of COVID or whatever it happens to be. They come up with a way of finding new money that can go into our markets, which is why we're seeing
pay off all of the kids' loans.
Exactly.
That way we can get more people into the indoctrination colleges.
Yep. And now we have, more exposed dollars, if you will. I'll put that in quotes a little bit, as they're not real dollars. It's a position that is theoretical to boost market sentiment. That's what quantitative easing is. You can look this up on the Fed Reserve's website. So that being said, silver has been talked about going through the roof for a long time. One, probably it's natural suppression. Most of the major banks have suppressed silver for 40 or 50 years. It is the most manipulated asset by far. There's been several articles written about it over the last 20 years. There's been several financial institutions fined for suppressing the value of silver, including JP Morgan, where they had to fire one of their head executives for doing just that, giving the instructions to suppress the value of silver. So when you start looking at it being pushed down in value, you can also look at some of the major market research companies where we have not found a new silver mine in over 25 years. Basic economics, right? It's if we don't have the supply and our demand is going up through several factors. One, silver is more popular as an investment practice than it ever has been. It's also more utilized industrially, more in the electric vehicle market and more in the solar panel market than it ever has in history. So our market demands have gone up and we haven't found more supply. I think it's a pretty simple answer as to where the value goes when you have no supply and you have a higher demand than you ever had.
Demand. It seemed like I heard that someplace. Let me read something I got from Stuart, an email I got this morning at 6:55 a.m. Stan, I look at the price of gold and silver as a measure of when the dollar has lost 30% and 50%. Based on what I would say from April 23 until March 25 of 24, they have been trying to prop up the dollar after losing 30%, and we are now at the point where the dollar has lost 50%. I base these dates on silver, and the reason that the silver is so critical is because AI demands silver. They now have the architecture and the chips to make ASI. I don't know what that is. I got to look that up yet. All they need is the silver and the power. As a result, all countries and every Fortune 500 company is racing to buy up their own supercomputer to house their own AI. I. In other words, silver is going through the rock or through the roof.
That's a simple way of putting it. If you really start to look in, as I was just describing, supply and demand, it is a very simple breakdown. Supply and demand drives up value. Well, another factor in this is most folks are now starting to rotate to safe and dependable assets where we're at an all-time high in our stock market. They're going, I'll take some chips off the table now while it makes sense and I'm not chasing trying to get my money back. And they're going to alternatives. You know, the list of alternatives that are not tied to the US dollar has diminished greatly to really only one. We have the crypto market, if you want to go with that. I like to stick with what's tried and true. You know, gold and silver have held value in every country in the world, and gold's been the longest traded currency on the planet. You can't outpace what was listed in the Bible. I don't remember reading about stocks or bonds. So
I got another question. Before I ask the question, let me give a disclaimer. Folks, we are not giving financial advice, okay? You need to pray about this. You need to consult with somebody who is a financial expert. What we are trying to do is explain how prophecy seems to be coming to pass. Now, we know that Shane Warren said the price of a dollar is going to be worthless as leaves blowing in the wind. Coverstone saw it fall from 30% to 50% to 66 and then down finally to zero. He saw it being sucked out of the banks like a vacuum cleaner. Now, I just read an article here in the last couple of days where Cuba, all of their currency and their coins were just gone overnight. They even broke into banks, and inside the vaults, they found nothing. And the same thing is happening on Australia. And I got another prophecy, which I read in today's program, and it is this is a part of a plan. That this is a prophecy. Literally, we're going to wake up one day and our accounts, savings account, checking account, all zeroed, all of the cash, all of the coin. That's at least a prophecy. They're all gone. Now, that's going to be a time when let's put it this way. If you've got money in the stock market, poof. You got money in the bank, poof. You got money in the mattress, it might not still be worth anything. But if you've got it in gold and silver at a place where you can drive to it and get it in an emergency, that's what these guys help you do. Don't lose your life savings. Got an IRA, got money in the money market, got money in the bank. If it's not gold, silver, a land, or drilling rigs, they know what I'm talking about. Okay, so back to my question. So how does all of this work so that they won't lose their life savings?
Yeah, so we do a couple of things. First and foremost, it's education and information. You know, I can only have so much time here to walk folks through it. So the easiest way is you're transitioning from a public banking system to essentially a privatized retirement system operating through a trust. We utilize trust custodians where folks can perform a tax-deferred rollover. There's no penalties to them. They can move their money without penalty. Typically, we would have a quick conversation to find out if you're eligible for such a thing. 401ks, IRAs, all very simple to transition. Once that is accomplished, then we can walk you through a metals purchase where we pull back the curtain to the metals market. We show you the differences of bars, coins, rounds, and et cetera, and really show you the big, broad spectrum of what the precious metals market can do for you. And then let folks decide for themselves if it's something that fits for them as an investor or not. But you can't do that without education and information. Once you get to that point, we help you set up with a private depository. It's a private entity, doesn't answer to the US government. It answers to the trustee, which would be yourself. So in that sense, now we help you set up somewhere nearby, hopefully close. There's depositories all around the country. They're all insured on the full value of your precious metals that are held there. You're in a private vault. And the easiest way to describe it is we try to put it close to you. That way, if Armageddon does happen or things hit the fan, it's a quick horse ride over if we don't have access to our cars, and you can open it like any other vault. There's physical paperwork, anything.
Now, one of the things that I like about you and about your whole firm there, that this is a Christian-based firm, so that when you say, okay, this is an option, they know that you're telling them the truth. Because some of these places, how do I say this, are not exactly honest.
I won't ever speak ill of another company. I like to say that we do things differently. That happens to be guided from our, I would say, a different type of moral compass. I make a joke all the time that we have 3-letter agencies that we have to answer to often. My funny joke is that my 3-letter agency is God. At the end of the day, I have to answer to him above everybody else. So I give the same recommendations and try to give the same education that I would to, friends of mine or family. And if I can't stand by that, I won't give you the information.
Okay, let me jump in and get your opinion on something. Okay, so tying together Shane Warren and Dana Coverstone and several very credible people, here's essentially what they see. Now, my question is, I want you to comment on this. Pop in at any time. So we've already talked about the dollar is falling. In the middle of the dollar, that there's also going to be an earthquake. And probably Israel is going to give the Palestinians a state. And if America causes the split of Israel, God's going to split America. And that could bring a great revival. Now, if someone's sitting there and they've got a pretty large stack of money in an IRA, a 401k, or maybe just some other kind of investment that's paper, okay? Yep. Stock market. I mean, I talked to my white hat banker the other day, and he said he was told months ago that he said, one of the things you see is when we hit 40,000 on the Dow, then blah, da, 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 da is going to happen. I can't tell you the blah, da, 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 but I don't have to tell you the Dow just hit 40,000. So it's no longer over the horizon or at the end of the street. It's ringing the doorbell. Now, with all that, your comment.
There's a lot to take in there. I would say that the best time to take chips off the table is always at market all-time highs. There's going to be a retraction point. Is it going to be 10%, 20%, 40%, 80%? None of us know that answer, right? Well, I would say some of the elites, I'm sure, know a semblance of an answer. So I try to watch them. Gentlemen like Warren Buffett that just sold $100 million associated with S&P 500 companies. So you look on the back of that going, why would one of the most prolific investors of our time, whether you like the man or not, make a decision to sell such a large piece in the S&P 500?
There you go.
That's a telltale sign right there. Considering 7 companies control the majority of the S&P 500 right now. You've got NVIDIA, Tesla, Amazon, Alphabet. There's several there that essentially dictate the direction of the S&P 500. If they choose to sell, we don't know what will happen. But they hold over 70% of the value of the entirety of the S&P 500. If we're invested in the S&P and even half of them sell, that's 30% of the value of the S&P 500 gone like that. So with that being said, that's a question that we can never answer, right? None of us have the crystal ball. So I always give folks the idea of what is worst case scenario. In your own head, you have to come up with that because I can't tell you what it is, right? We all have this idea of Armageddon or whatever else. I consider a market crash or another position where we're looking at 30, 40, 50% down in the markets, a pretty ugly scenario for anybody right now, especially if you're in retirement. So what I try to tell folks is if you choose to exit from the stock market and go to gold or silver, you're exiting a position that historically on every recessionary timeline since our Great Depression has lost value. And you're adjusting to an asset vehicle, according to our National Bureau of Economic Research, that has never lost value. I'm a big baseball nerd. So if we're 2 outs in the 9th and I've got a guy that goes 10 for 10 at the plate or one that goes 0 for 10, I think I know who I'm choosing. So when folks are saying, well, it's scary, I've never done that before, I ask them how they feel about their current positions and where they would feel most safe. And most of the time that I hear, well, not in the market right now. And I go, okay, great. What are your other options? So I walk through those step by step and I show them all the data. And it starts to become very clear that you're moving to an asset vehicle that's never declined in value in a recession, at least for the last 100 years, and has been traded as value in every country for over 4,000 years. It's a pretty easy bet if you go, I want away from the dollar denominated assets, even for a little while, and I can make the change back if need be. Worst case scenario, you go to gold and silver, nothing changes, and gold's still been going up. Right. So
I remember interviewing a guy right around the 2000 year mark. And gold at that time was $200 an ounce. I remember him saying they can't get it out of the ground for that. That's below wholesale prices. And I thought, man, I wish I had a bunch of gold at $200 now.
Yep. Yeah. Gold's up over 550% in the last 21 years. So, we go back to 2000, it's been on an upward trajectory ever since. And
like what one guy said, he said the price of gold doesn't change. In other words, like in the days of Abraham Lincoln, one ounce coin would buy you a nice suit of clothes. Today, one ounce coin will buy you a nice set of clothes. Okay. So the value of gold hasn't changed. What has happened is our Federal Reserve note has gone down because evil people in high places have stolen it from the masses. But you don't have to let them continue to steal your money, especially if you've got life savings, my brothers and sisters. Look. I talked to my white hat banker just yesterday. Spent 45 days on 45 hours, 45 minutes to get this right on the phone with him. And I said, so when's it going to happen? He said, I told you April or May. And he said, okay. He said, let me give you an example. He said, I normally have one or two of these on my desk. And I can't say what he said. Normally I have one or two of these on my desk at any one time. He said, right now I have 12. I said, you're saying it's about to happen. He said, it could happen at any day. I'm only trying to say, if you've been thinking about doing something, your turn.
I was thinking that over for just a second. It's one of those where I love to correct and really put people on a path, but I don't want to be the one selling you on what decision you're making any longer. It's open up a computer, look for yourself, and then we're here as a solution. You can call us at 800-200-4653 or 800-200-GOLD or, at genesisgoldgroup.com. I want folks just to explore options. That's why we do these conversations with folks, because you can't get anywhere without all the education and information. And gentlemen like yourself, Stan, you really help put people on the path to start asking the questions that need to be asked. And sometimes it's the hard question that you didn't want to ask yet that leads you to making those decisions that take the weight off your shoulders.
Let me point out something. As you can detect by listening to him, he's not an arm twister. He's not high pressure. He's here to help. And the same thing at all the people, 800-200-GOLD or prophecyclubgold.com, same thing.
Yep.
You're calling to get another perspective just to make certain, hey, I got this. I don't want to lose it. What are my options? And you're calling to get some options. Doesn't hurt to call. Okay. No
Exactly.
one, by the way, and they don't get badgered with emails and phone calls after that, right?
No, we actually have a pretty strict policy where emails are sent in response most of the time. So we're not doing a blast out unless you've already had a conversation with us where we've got new developments in the marketplace, and it's just a reminder of what's going on most of the time. And all of us, subscribe to news. We just have a little bit more pointed news. Now, if you reach out for information to us, typically it's all done in a phone call. And by that point, you're going to have a pretty good understanding of which direction you want to go. It may lead to another phone call, may lead to more time. Sometimes, it's not a one shoe fits all, if you will. Everybody's a little bit different when it comes to their process and the time frame of that process and their goals. And we're here to just give you the information to attain those goals.
Okay. I call. I don't know what I want to do. I've got a stack of something someplace that's in paper.
Mm-hmm.
Walk me through how it works and how long it takes for me to get my paper turned into precious metals, a drive away that I can pick up in an emergency.
Yeah, so we got two options. So I'll do it quickly here. A cash purchase or anything that's cash equivalent, you can purchase within 48 hours very quickly. Once we have funds in, we can set you up with a trade, get that trade done. We're shipping precious metals out to your home to be received by you. They're insured and shipped all on us. You would have to be the one to accept them. That's the fastest and easiest way to do it. Then you get into retirement. You can perform rollovers from most retirement policies unless there's a specific clause, usually initiated by a financial institution. It's not on our end. But most folks are eligible once past the age of 59 and a half for 401ks, or IRAs are eligible at any time. You can roll over those policies tax deferred and penalty free to become self-directed. You're getting safety and security in a fashion while self-directed you don't get in the banking system. And then we really shed light on what precious metals can do for folks as an investment practice. If that's something that makes sense, we can help you set that up. We set you up with a private depository, one hopefully closest by or wherever you would like it in the country. And once that's done, you're setting yourself up with quarterly reviews with us to be going through them step by step with you, so you always know what's going on with your portfolio.
Okay, so how long does it take from phone call to everything done and arrived?
Great question. So this has been the most changing side of this business. I can equate it to a couple of things. Geopolitical turmoil, utilization of precious metals as a practice. It's become much more popular, which makes everything happen a little bit slower, right? Folks are a little busier over the depositories and everything else. I used to tell folks it was a 3 to 5 day process for the banks to process your information and get us your money moved over to a self-directed policy. Now I'm telling them 5 to 15 business days because the banks aren't in good shape. They don't want you to know it, but it's taken them a lot longer to take care of things. Not like before. 2 years ago, it would have been a very different conversation. So that's the only step in this process I can't help with. I don't work with the banks. We're at their mercy. So I say 5 to 15 business days. Let's get the ball rolling. If you want to cancel at any time, that's the best part. You can go right back to where you came from. But
okay, so if they're under 59 and a half, then what?
That's the unfortunate part. If you're in a 401k and under 59 and a half, you have clauses in the 401k policy you set up with your employer that keeps you there till retirement age. That is deemed at 59 and a half. Unfortunately, you would have to either separate from the company itself or it was from a prior company you worked for. If you've been with them 40 years, you just got to wait until you're over 59 and a half, and then you open doors to be able to move, funds.
You can't take it out and there's some kind of a penalty or something. You physically cannot remove it.
You can. I would never want someone to do so without all of the information. It's going to vary person to person. You may get extremely lucky and have the opportunity to move something. The majority of the time, though, and this is just our banking system, you get penalized for removing from your 401k in a certain percentage as an early withdrawal fee. Then you have taxes on those withdrawal fees. So they start adding up pretty drastically if you're under the age of 59 and a half. And I'm talking, I've seen folks try to exit their policies losing 40%. And then there's another clause where if your employer doesn't want to let go of you yet, they can actually withhold all the contributions of the entirety you spent with their company if you exit before 59 and a half. Now, that's not every policy, but if that happens to be part of yours, I can never in good faith or conscience say, hey, take that big of a hit and we can help you after. So
okay, then let me ask the tough question.
Yep.
Everybody wants to know if the stock market's going to crash. Would they lose their 401k or would they lose their paper finances?
Yeah, that is the $1 million question. And unfortunately, you get into the realm of financial advice. However, what I can say, I relate everything to 2008. So I can speak in what has happened in the past. In 2008, we saw over 500 banks disappear forever. If you happen to be one of those folks with an IRA or 401k or even an annuity policy with those banks, it took most of the folks that had SIPC insurance that essentially said we would fulfill, better than the FDIC. It took them 11 years to get 7% of their money back. So with that being said, if they were trying to get money back, it would lead me to believe that they lost it to begin with. So if they say we can't lose money, but folks in 2008 took 7, 8, 9, 11 years to start getting their money back, it's not a scenario where they can tell us any longer it didn't happen. Because if banks fail and your money is there, your money is gone because technically you're an investor to a small business. quote
See,
unquote.
that's what was in this most recent prophecy I just read yesterday, which confirmed what happened. Matter of fact, there's got the three of them that says our money is poof, it's gone. They take it out of all of our accounts. And
Mhm.
then, of course, they give us all new accounts with the new digital currency. And then, of course, we have all of the World Economic Forum controlling us. So, if that
Well,
would happen, even if they got a 40% or a 50% hit on taxes, it'd be better to have 50% rather than only 8%.
I'd rather have 50% of something than 0% of everything. Right. So yes, there's always a weigh those options. In my mind, would I ever make that decision for someone or tell them that it's the choice? I can't do that for you. It's a difficult thing to recommend because there's always the 0.001% that we are all wrong and nothing bad happens. However, if it all does, and you're sitting in a dollar denominated asset, you will be affected. You can't, there's no ifs, ands, buts, any way around it. There's specific laws now that were essentially inducted, if you will, through the Dodd-Frank and money market fund reform that was under Obama in 2010. When that all came out, it changed the name of the game. Banks were declared too big to fail, several other things across the board. I won't go into that too much, but it's an extremely long bill that changed a lot in the terms of our retirement and how banks will function if we do see another financial crisis. And I can tell you, it's not to benefit you and I.
Here's the thing. Okay, so I'm 70.
Mm-hmm.
If I were 59 and a half, I don't think I would want to lose my life savings that I've spent 10, 20, 30, I don't know, 40 years building up.
Yep.
And now I'm counting on that to make my house payment or my condo, whatever it is, my car payments, feed me and my wife, the children.
Exactly.
All of a sudden, poof, it's gone in something I had no control over. But if I've got my life's savings in precious metals and I can drive there and pick it up in an emergency,
yep,
I would sleep better at night. Now, again, we're not giving financial advice.
Mm-hmm.
But the last thing I want to hear is, hey, man, I wish I'd done it because I lost everything. But on the other hand, I don't want to hear, hey, man, I wish my money was still in the market because the market went up, blah, blah, blah. I'd have made all this money. So, we can't give you advice.
Mm-hmm.
But we just don't want you to lose all your. Okay, so how do they get a hold of you? We'll conclude.
Yeah, I would say go to prophecyclubgold.com, genesisgoldgroup.com, 800-200-GOLD. That's 800-200-4653. So those are the easiest ways. We always appreciate getting to work with you, Stan. I think the information you're giving folks opens those doors. And, exciting every time because when I get to talk to folks that say, oh, I watched Stan, it's a good one because I know we're already like-minded.
Oh, well, that's my next question. You took it right out. So do you notice a difference between Prophecy Club people and your average caller?
Yes, information is one, and that's a big, I would say, green flag, if you will, where you come in, you start having a conversation with somebody, and they're well aware of what's going on. And oftentimes, when you already have information, you're ahead of the game, and it speeds up our process a little bit. I can kind of dive into the nitty gritty, and this is the way I work. I'm going to tell you the good, bad, and ugly as quickly as possible. And then you can ask all your questions because with all of that will come questions. And the majority of the time, that's why we're so busy over here is once folks have all the information, it becomes a very one-sided conversation of, all right, how do I get out? Where do I go from here? And
they can always come back and get more, or they can always call you and sell part or all of it off pretty quick too.
Anytime.
So it's good on top of good. Turn to the left, it's good. Turn to the right, it's good. Call you, it's good.
Yep. It's that financial bunker, as we like to call it, that lets you withstand everything going on out there geopolitically and, every negative scenario you can dream up in your head, whether it's going to happen or not. If you're sitting in gold or silver, it's a place where you can weather the storm a little while and go back right to the system that, we've all done for 30, 40, 50, 60, 80 years that we're all well and good with during bull markets. In times like this, take a break, take the weight off your shoulders, and put yourself in a position where you're not waking up every day and checking the market.
Or waking up every day because your stomach is churning because you're afraid. Brad Garrett, 800-200 gold. Thank you for being on Prophecy Club.
Perfect. Thanks for having me, Stan. Always love being here.
Let me talk about our 3 sponsors briefly. First, if you want to get gold or silver, we're going to send you to 800-200 gold or prophecyclubgold.com. prophecyclubgold.com. Second, if you want to get long-term emergency food, the only place I would send you to is josephskitchen.com. It is what I believe is God's long-term storage food. As you recall, Pharaoh and Joseph, what fed the world for 7 years was wheat. Most of your long-term storage places, $9,000 to $10,000 to feed one person for 1 year. Joseph's Kitchen can show you how to do it for about $1,000, one person, 1 year. And EMP Shield. If you want your car to start, if you want your computers to start after some kind of nuclear event, that's the device to get. And if you go to empshield.com and use the promo code PROPHECY, get your $50 discount and help your Prophecy Club.